A security camera inside Iron Peak Fitness Center in Harlow, Nebraska, captures a woman training alone. Gray joggers, a burgundy sports bra, auburn hair secured in a tight bun. She's working through a set of deadlifts, eyes locked on her reflection, completely in her element. The facility is deserted. Just her, the hum of fluorescent lights, and the distant rattle of an HVAC unit. She is not alone.
60 seconds later, a separate camera, this one mounted inside the facility's administrative suite, captures something that will become the cornerstone of a homicide investigation. A man sits hunched at a workstation, his face pale in the glow of a surveillance monitor. The screen is divided into a grid of camera feeds from across the building. He is not scanning them. He is anchored to one, the woman in gray joggers. He tilts closer. His elbow rests on the desk, chin resting in his palm. His expression hovers somewhere between fixation and fury. He does not look away, not once. At 11:59 p.m., an exterior camera covering the east parking structure records the woman emerging through the facility's side exit, duffel bag hanging from one shoulder, jacket half-zipped against the October chill. She walks with purpose toward her car. 7 seconds later, the door swings open again. A figure in a dark zip-up jacket steps out, pauses, turns his head in her direction, then begins to follow. Not rushing, not jogging, just walking, deliberate, measured, closing the gap one careful step at a time. That was the last confirmed sighting of her alive. 11 days later, a groundskeeper clearing brush from a derelict grain storage facility 4 miles east of Iron Peak made a discovery that would leave veteran law enforcement officers struggling to find words. It would expose the festering obsession of a man who had never once been told and forced to accept the word no.
She was 31 years old, a licensed occupational therapist at a rehabilitation clinic in central Harlow. She rented a one-bedroom apartment 7 minutes from Iron Peak, where she'd held a membership for just under 8 months. She trained late, preferring the solitude of near-empty gyms, the freedom to move without an audience. Natalie was methodical. Mondays were reserved for compound lower body movements, Thursdays upper body and core, Saturdays long-form cardio. She logged every session in a worn spiral notebook she kept tucked inside her duffel. Her colleagues at the clinic described her as warm but self-contained, deeply competent, someone who knew exactly who she was and asked nothing from anyone she hadn't offered first. She maintained a modest social media presence, a fitness-adjacent account with around 9,000 followers. Progress updates, form breakdowns, the occasional candid post. Comments ranged from encouraging to unsettling. She learned early to mute the unsettling ones rather than engage. He was 30 years old, officially employed at Iron Peak as a strength and conditioning coach, a title that had been handed to him rather than earned. His father, Russell Carver, had founded Iron Peak 11 years prior and built it into one of the most well-regarded independent gyms in the region. Dominic's certifications were borderline. His retention rate as a trainer was dismal. Most clients requested reassignment after a handful of sessions, citing vague discomfort they rarely elaborated on. Russell absorbed the complaints quietly, rerouted the clients, and said nothing to his son that amounted to any real consequence. What Dominic did have was access, administrative credentials, master key codes, and unrestricted access to Iron Peak's security infrastructure, a 19-camera system accessible via a dedicated app on his personal phone, with remote viewing available around the clock. For 8 months, ever since Natalie Voss walked through the front door and filled out her intake form, he had been using that access to watch her. When investigators later examined Dominic's devices, what they found was methodical in a way that made experienced detectives go quiet. 517 screenshots captured from security feeds, every one of them featuring Natalie. 134 photos harvested directly from her social media archive.
19 screen-recorded videos taken covertly from across the gym floor, some with zoomed framing. And in a notes application on his phone, a document titled simply NV, a running log of her training schedule, arrival and departure times, the make and color of her vehicle, and her preferred parking bay. He wasn't watching her casually, he was cataloging her.
Natalie had approached Dominic exactly 4 times. Each time, it was him approaching her. June 9th, he offered a complimentary movement assessment. She thanked him and said she was good. June 23rd, he proposed a 4-week custom programming block free of charge. She said she had her own programming. July 11th, he asked if she'd want to grab something to eat after her session sometime. She said she wasn't interested. July 28th, he approached her mid-workout, asked again, phrased differently, softer, whether she'd consider coffee, just casual, just to talk. She told him clearly and without apology that she wasn't going to change her answer. After that 4th conversation, he stopped asking out loud. Natalie had told her closest friend, Priya Donnell, about the interactions during a phone call in early August. "The coach at my gym has asked me out 4 times, she said. "I've been clear every time. Now he just hovers. I can feel him watching me across the floor." Priya urged her to file a complaint. Natalie's response was resigned. "His dad owns the building. I don't think it goes anywhere." She didn't report it. Instead, she shifted her training times progressively later into the evening, when the facility was quietest and staffing was minimal. She believed less overlap meant less exposure. She was wrong. Dominic simply adjusted his own schedule to match.
Investigators would also surface a prior record of behavior that had been systematically buried. In 2020, a woman submitted a formal harassment complaint to Harlow PD, accusing Dominic of following her home on 3 separate occasions after she declined his advances at a social gathering. Text message records she provided showed a pattern of escalation spanning 2 weeks, including 2 messages she described as threatening. The complaint was withdrawn 4 months later. The woman subsequently relocated to another city. Russell Carver's legal representation had been involved in the interim. In 2022, a former Iron Peak member reported to gym management that Dominic had accessed her private membership file and used her contact information to send her unsolicited personal messages. An internal review was conducted. Dominic received a documented verbal warning, his only formal consequence. The woman was offered a full membership refund and presented with a non-disclosure agreement. She signed it. 2 incidents, 2 women silenced, 1 man allowed to continue without interruption. October 17th, 2023. Natalie arrived at Iron Peak at 10:38 p.m. Her vehicle, a charcoal Subaru Outback, pulled into the east structure. She entered through the side access door using her member key card. The gym held 2 other patrons at that hour. Both had cleared out before 11:15 p.m. Natalie trained alone for just over an hour. Dominic had clocked in at 10:20 p.m. for the closing shift, responsible for a final walkthrough, lockdown, and alarm activation. He spent the majority of his shift in the administrative suite. At 10:52 p.m., the weight room camera shows Natalie mid-session, working through her deadlift sets, form sharp, headphones in. At 10:52 p.m., the administrative suite camera shows Dominic at the workstation, motionless, leaned forward, staring at her feed. He remains there, unmoving, for over 13 minutes. At 11:47 p.m., Natalie exits the changing room, repacked duffel over her shoulder, hair still faintly damp. The administrative suite is empty. Dominic is no longer at the workstation. 11:59 p.m., east parking structure. Natalie crosses the frame, unhurried, keys already in hand. She reaches the Outback, clicks the fob,
The indicators flash. She opens the driver's door and leans in to set her bag on the passenger seat. The door behind her opens. A figure in a dark jacket steps into the frame, pauses, then begins moving in her direction, steady, practiced, maintaining a distance of roughly 15 feet as he closes in. Natalie straightens. She turns. Her body language shifts in a single frame. She steps back against the car door. She says something. The figure does not stop. She raises her phone. The camera angle does not capture what happens next.
Natalie failed to appear at the rehabilitation clinic on the morning of October 18th. By early afternoon, her emergency contact, her younger brother, Marcus Voss, had been reached. He hadn't heard from her. By 3:30 p.m., a missing persons report had been filed. Detective Cassandra Oubre was assigned the case. She began at Iron Peak. When she reviewed the parking structure footage, she saw everything: the exit, the interval, the figure in the dark jacket. She identified Dominic Carver as the sole staff member on duty that night within minutes. Dominic was brought in for a voluntary interview on October 19th. He was visibly agitated, deflecting, answering questions with questions. When Oubre asked why the administrative suite camera showed him watching Natalie's feed for 13 consecutive minutes, he said he was monitoring the gym. When she asked why he had followed Natalie to the parking structure, he said he hadn't. When she played him the footage, he went silent for 4 minutes. His vehicle was subjected to a forensic search. Analysts recovered fabric fibers consistent with the material of Natalie's duffel bag from the cargo area. A small biological stain on the rear passenger door panel was flagged for DNA analysis. They did not yet have Natalie's body. By October 21st, Oubre had gathered testimony from Priya Donnell and 2 other friends, all of whom corroborated Natalie's account of Dominic's repeated advances and surveillance behavior. She had also uncovered both prior incidents, the 2020 complaint and the 2022 internal report, through a combination of police records requests and interviews with the women involved. Every thread, when pulled, led back to the same name.
October 28, 2023, 7:14 a.m. A groundskeeper named Walter Ames, 58 years old, was clearing overgrowth from the perimeter of a grain storage facility on Harlow's eastern edge, a property abandoned since 2015, its windows long since shattered, its walls covered in successive layers of weathered graffiti. Walter had worked the area before. He knew the layout. But that morning, something was different. An odor, faint at first, then unmistakable, drifting from the direction of the rear storage annex. He pushed open the door. He left everything where it was and called 911 from the road. Natalie Voss was found inside that annex on a concrete floor, partially obscured beneath a section of heavy industrial tarpaulin. She had been there for 11 days. The October temperatures had slowed decomposition, but not enough. The medical examiner's report contains details that will not be reproduced here, not as a concession to ambiguity, but out of genuine respect for Natalie and the people who loved her. What the documentation makes clear is this: her death was not swift, it was not incidental. What was done to her was deliberate and sustained, inflicted with the specific intention of degrading and punishing her. A senior investigator who processed the scene told a journalist months later, "I've spent 23 years in this work. What I saw in that building was not simply violence, it was retribution. Whoever did this believed she had wronged him." DNA recovered from beneath Natalie's fingernails she had fought was submitted for analysis. Carpet fibers matching the material of Dominic Carver's vehicle interior were identified at the scene. A partial Iron Peak staff ID badge was recovered 6 feet from her body. It was registered to Dominic Carver.
Dominic was taken into custody on October 29th at his father's residence. In the interrogation room, Detective Oubre did not begin with questions. She laid the evidence across the table, piece by piece, without commentary. The footage, the fiber analysis, the badge, the DNA preliminary results. Dominic sat with his arms folded for nearly 2 hours. Then he said, "She acted like I was invisible, like I was something embarrassing." Oubre asked him to explain. He described, without apparent affect, how Natalie's repeated rejections had accumulated into something he could no longer contain. He had extended himself, his time, his expertise, his attention, and she had declined all of it, he said, like he was nobody. Oubre asked whether he had followed her to the parking structure on October 17th. He said yes. She asked what had occurred. He said Natalie had confronted him, told him she intended to report his conduct to management and, if necessary, to police. She had called him obsessive. She had reached for her phone. "I just needed her to hear me," he said. "She wouldn't stop long enough to actually listen." Oubre asked what he did next. Dominic looked at the surface of the table. His jaw tightened incrementally. "I made sure she couldn't walk away." He described the warehouse. He had identified it previously as a location he knew would be undisturbed. He described in the same flat dissociative register what he had done inside it. When Oubre asked him why in the manner he chose, why with such deliberate cruelty, his answer was direct and unadorned. "Because she treated me like I was nothing. I wanted her to understand what that feels like."
Dominic Carver was charged with first-degree homicide, abduction, and aggravated battery. His trial convened in February 2024. The prosecution built their case methodically. The surveillance footage, the digital evidence recovered from his devices, the forensic findings, testimony from Priya Donnell and others who had heard Natalie describe her discomfort, testimony from the 2 prior complainants whose NDAs had been rendered unenforceable in the context of a criminal proceeding. The defense attempted to introduce reasonable doubt, gesturing toward Natalie's other rejected suitors as alternative suspects. The prosecution closed the argument with Dominic's recorded confession, specific, detailed, and entirely self-incriminating. The jury reached a verdict in 3 hours and 40 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Dominic Carver received a sentence of life imprisonment without eligibility for parole. At sentencing, the presiding judge addressed him directly. "You convinced yourself that this woman's refusal was an injustice done to you, that her autonomy was an obstacle rather than a right. You did not simply take her life, you attempted to strip her of every last remnant of dignity first. There is no framework, legal, moral, or human, in which what you did is anything other than monstrous." Russell Carver divested from Iron Peak within 5 months of the verdict. He has not spoken publicly about his son. Natalie's brother, Marcus, established a nonprofit in her name focused on funding legal support for victims of workplace harassment and stalking. He has testified twice before the Nebraska State Legislature in support of mandatory third-party reporting obligations for fitness and wellness facilities. Natalie Voss was 31 years old. She loved her work. She loved the quiet of a late-night gym. She loved the particular satisfaction of hitting a personal record with no one watching. She said no 4 times, clearly, without cruelty, without apology. She changed her routine to minimize conflict. She told her friends what was happening. She documented her discomfort in the way women learn early to document things, privately, just in case. She did everything she was supposed to do, and it was not enough. Not because she failed, but because the systems around her, the gym ownership, the suppressed prior complaints, the settled accusations, had spent years ensuring that a man like Dominic Carver never encountered a consequence proportionate to his behavior. By the time Natalie Voss said no for the 4th time, Dominic had already learned that no had no teeth. Her story is not a cautionary tale about what women should do differently. It is an indictment of what was allowed to continue unchecked for years around her. No is a complete sentence. It requires no softening, no justification, no follow-up. The obligation to respect it belongs entirely to the person who hears it. If someone in your life will not accept that word, document it. Say it to someone you trust. Say it to someone with authority. Say it to the police if you need to. And to anyone witnessing this pattern in someone else, your silence is not neutrality, it is permission. Natalie deserved to drive home that night. She deserved so much more than what she got.